Good afternoon, good morning in US. I'm José Salvada, Chief Commercial Officer of AeroDynamic, belonging to Omni Aviation Group. AeroDynamic is an MRO with 30 years experience. And in reality, it's a big pleasure for me to moderate this panel on MRO and fleet forecast. The global pandemic changed completely our lives. The effect, as you know, in the airline business is huge. Most airlines really struggle today to survive in this unforeseen crisis within the last 7 months. Forecast markets in these surreal times is the high art of market research. Finding the light at the end of the tunnel and describing what the industry will look like are the questions to be answered today. This panel will show an insight on the top market update forecasts in aerospace and aviation. Join me today, we have a wonderful team of highly recognized international speakers. I'm very honored and thankful for their participation. I'll do a short presentation on the people here on stage with me. We have Klaus Müller on my left from Germany, representing AeroDynamic advisor. On my right side, we have Andrea Ardabreu, a senior consultant from Portugal. And remotely, we have Hans de Graaf from Germany, Airbus, and Brian Koff from US Aviation Week. So what a panel of speakers we have today. We'll start with a presentation from Aviation Week, Brian, on the new 2021 forecast projections and comparisons to the pre-COVID-19 numbers. Brian is a retired lieutenant colonel from US Marine Corps, now Senior Director, Lead Analyst for Aerospace Forecasting, Insights and Intelligence specialized in MRO Aftermarket, supply chain and top-tier OEMs. He presents analysis results at conferences worldwide and is responsible for creating online business intelligence products and custom research for clients. Brian provides market insights across both civil and defense aerospace. Hello, Brian. Brian, are you there? Oh. Hi, Brian. Hi, Hans. Are you well?
I am there. I'm well. I cannot hear Brian. Maybe you have to switch on the mic, Brian.
Just waiting Brian to join us. Some difficulties with the micro, I believe.
Maybe you do the ongoing introduction.
Yeah. So my intention was to present each speaker in the end or during the presentation. So waiting just Brian to join us, allow me also to present Klaus Müller from Germany. He's a very successful senior executive. He has managed several multi-million projects in multi-billion-dollar aerospace firms, namely as Senior VP at MTU Aero Engines. He headed the Market Intelligence Group at Lufthansa Technik. He also served in the business development, marketing, and strategy functions during his 20 years with Lufthansa. To date, Klaus Müller is Senior Advisor at AeroDynamic Advisory, aerospace consulting firm specialized in aerospace strategy and growth. Thank you very much for coming from Germany to join us in Portugal. It's a pleasure. So in Germany also we have Hans de Graaf from Germany. So he has 40 years of working experience in the commercial and military aerospace industry. He has been leading and directing projects ranging from airworthiness certification flight test, aircraft manufacture design and development, and aircraft leasing. He joined the EADS group after its creation in the year 2000, driving institutional business development for aircraft, satellites, equipment, and system solutions in commercial and defense and security domain. Currently, Hans is heading at Airbus Defence and Space the combat and mission aircraft, the service sales activities covering MRO, upgrades, and material management, as well as engineering test and integration services. And we have from Portugal, Andreas Abreu, with also more than 40 years of experience in the aeronautical industry. Started the career at Portuguese Air Force as an officer dedicated to maintenance and engineering activities, supporting several aircraft fleets in different levels and functions within the organization. In the latter part of his career, he worked in the aircraft production, program management, business development, marketing, and senior management for several national and international companies and groups. He is currently a senior consultant for several groups in Portugal and abroad. He is without doubt one of the persons with more knowledge of aviation in Portugal. Thank you, Andre. So, Brian, I don't know if you are ready?
Are you able to hear me now?
Yes, good.
All right.
Thank you, Brian.
Wonderful.
Thank you for
Apologies
joining
for
us
that.
from US.
Thank you. Thank you.
So, Brian,
Yes, all is here, and thank you for the invitation.
it's a pleasure. So, Brian, maybe you can start doing, your presentation, doing, the market outlook in terms of MRO and fleet forecast. So then we'll have a discussion. The stage is yours. Thank you.
Okay, good. Can you see my screen as well?
Yeah, wonderful.
All right. We overcome some technical difficulties, so I appreciate that. And thank you again for the invitation to give a presentation here. Hopefully we can leave some time for question and answers after the presentation. But yeah, I'd like to introduce you to our fleet, our 2021, so our newest release. We actually took the opportunity to release our commercial forecast early because of obviously the huge effects that the pandemic has had around the world on commercial aviation. But I'll also be presenting some information on the business aviation forecast and activity because it's a really interesting bright spot in the aviation sector as a whole. And then just a little wrap up at the end with some impacts to military and defense market. This slide shows you utilization at 3 select regions here. And the reasons we're comparing this is that the red squiggly line is China. And then we also have the US and Europe. And it shows aggregate utilization over just out past a year, or back to January, actually, the end of the year. And it's an index to show you, what it looked like in 2019 or right at the beginning of 2020. And so we see that the Chinese domestic, now this is excluding international in this case, has actually exceeded the beginning of January. So very interesting story there in China. And then you can see in Europe and the US, we're back down to about 50% of aggregate flight hours on commercial aviation. It actually peaked in around September, the end of September, end of August. with some pretty nice upsloping flight activity. But this kind of gives you a picture of what we were dealing with was trying to predict the future on what the commercial aviation market looks like. And then I have some comparison slides with business aviation, so you'll see almost a very different picture here. But this is kind of a scene setter on what has transpired here as far as utilization. ASKs, available seat kilometers, if you're not familiar with that, that is what airlines are offering as far as flight activity, and that's where you could actually go in and book a flight against these schedules. This is a future-looking view of available seat kilometers, and you can see on the chart on the left-hand side how we've had this huge dip, this huge drop-off, and then up past October is all future predicted, and this is what airlines are putting out there as far as scheduling, what they think, or they're offering these flights for you or anyone to book a flight on. Very, very optimistic, especially in the U.S. and Canada, the red line there, but we also see in the Asia Pacific region, all regions are looking toward, they're offering these flights. And what we've seen month after month, however, is that this has not come to fruition. It has not taken place. The flights get canceled, and utilization is like we saw on the previous slide, down to around 50%. We peaked at around 65% capacity. And then on the chart on the right, you can see some of the changes, quarter to quarter. It looks very optimistic, but again, we've seen month after month that this actually gets kind of canceled out. Year on year, we see the drop off, dropping off almost 60% in the Asia Pacific region, 40% in U.S. and Canada. China is even down, Latin America, Middle East, so across all those regions. And then the last column there is just a year-to-date change, just to give you an idea of where we stand. Now kind of moving into the forecast, this is our in-service fleet forecast. This is what the net effect of all those retirements and deliveries, going into storage, passenger to freighter conversions. This is kind of the net effect that you see on these blue bars. Bar on the left-hand side of the chart, you'll see that this is a historical view of how the fleet had been climbing, growing on average almost 3% CAGR over those 5 years. And then we saw the drop-off we see the drop-off in 2020. That's still a forecast in 2020, and that's our forecast for what we think the fleet is going to look like. The fleet drops down to 27,370 aircraft in 2020 is what we're expecting, and then a steady increase. What this represents, especially in year 2021 is the 737 MAX. This is the biggest driver to deliveries, which is my next slide, but also the in-service fleet, because we have all those aircraft that are sitting on the ground, mostly in the state of Washington, but also they're the grounded aircraft. Now, the grounded aircraft around the world really don't add to this fleet, but all those in that picture there will add to the in-service fleet, because those are yet to be delivered aircraft, and there's about 450 of those. So that's a big impact, and yet it's still a big unknown. So overall, we're losing about 3,200 aircraft net in the year 2020 around the world. That seems kind of low, but what has happened is there was over 5,000 aircraft that went into storage during that period, and then we're showing that net effect of about 1,800 aircraft coming out by the end of this year. And then, let's get into the deliveries. This is what our expectation is for deliveries. Again, the chart on the left, we should have a little bit of a historical view of what deliveries had looked like in the past. So you see this steady climb up from 2015, and then we see this sharp drop-off in 2019. That is almost totally due to the 737 MAX. not being able to be delivered in the year 2019 because of the MCAS issue and the need for recertification. So without that, we would probably had a banner year in 2019 as well. So it impacts both 2019 and 2020, and then we have this double whammy, at least as far as Boeing is concerned, with the COVID-19 pandemic. So, so you can see a huge impact there to the expected deliveries in 2020 and 2021. 2021 would have even looked even lower, but again, that's the impact of the expectation of the 737 MAX coming back online and being recertified. EASA just recently just, put out a statement that they don't expect any problems, it should be recertified, and they're expecting to see flight operations by the end of this year. So good news story for the MAX and Boeing. The other component of this, these deliveries, is the Airbus A320, highly successful program, taking up a lot of market share as far as the narrow body market is concerned. So combining those, we're seeing a narrow body market of about 71% of the share of deliveries will be between those two aircraft families. This is huge because it was down to about, well, it was actually 50% or a little over 50% prior to this. So we've seen this huge shrinkage on regional jets and especially wide bodies. Wide bodies are down about 42% is our expectation of deliveries over the next few years. And we have a corresponding negative of about high 30% of regional jets, et cetera. So big impacts to new deliveries. Some of the things that are influencing this is aircraft coming out of storage. All those 5,000 aircraft that went into storage, there's an expectation. There's a significant cost involved in placing an aircraft into storage. And when I mean storage, this is the official taping the engines up and all the critical components and preserving that aircraft. Is about 800 labor hours to put a wide body into storage, and then a corresponding 600 or 800 to pull it out, in addition to probably a C-check that will be due. So significant amount of potential cost involved for operators. Just touching lightly on retirements, this is how we see the retirement picture showing. A couple of big takeaways on this is that we are going to see historic highs as far as a percentage of the active fleet of retirements over the next 10 years. So we'll be peaking over 3% of the fleet. On average, it's been around 2%, a little bit, 2.2%, somewhere around there. So the red bars are the actual numbers of retirements, and then the squiggly line is actually a percentage of the active fleet. So you can kind of follow that along, and you see how that peaks as the forecast progresses. So big ones that we're seeing that are going to dominate this are older 737 classics and some of the older A320s retiring, as well as what we're picturing down below there, the 747s, kind of an end of an era for that aircraft. Just a bit of distinction on that. When we say retirement, this is the official, this aircraft is going to be torn down and scrapped. A lot of announcements come out about airlines that are retiring their aircraft, but sometimes the terminology isn't the same. So just be cautious when you read that a lot of times that means that it's just going back to the lessor or being put on the market. So it will actually disappear from the fleet. As far as MRO demand, this is the aftermarket. What our expectations are. As far as the chartology here, we see on the left-hand side of your chart, you see kind of this big kind of alligator bite out of the MRO demand as compared to the previous forecast. So we're down about over $36 billion in MRO demand over the first 3 years of the forecast period. So 2021, 2022, 2023. But as far as the compound annual growth rate, the CAGR, MRO grows at about a 0.6% rate. How can this be? It really is because it starts at that lower bar, and it's all math and statistics at that point. So we've got a real lower bar that we're starting from, and then we end up in a much higher situation in the end. So engine MRO actually grows even quicker at almost 5%. And this is due to a lot of the legacy engines, the CFM56s and the V2500s. All those engines are still anticipated to need overhauls. But one of the takeaways from that, if you remember the retirement slide that I showed, all those aircraft have these legacy engines on those. So I'm going to talk to you a little bit about that and the potential for green time engines and engine components actually flooding the market. And we anticipate this to have a big impact on the spares market. All these aircraft retiring, obviously some of those parts will be coming on the market and affecting OEM pricing. Just by comparison, the year 2021 demand alone, next year, we're anticipating about $15.5 billion lower. And also, all of these figures are in constant US dollars. So these are 2020 dollars. There's no inflation or escalation built into those figures. So if you need to do some back of the napkin calculations, you'll need to kind of figure in your own inflation rates, as it were. Just another slide here quickly on engine MRO. Since it's such a big component, over $405 billion in demand, engine MRO comprises about 46% of our MRO demand model. So a huge influencer on MRO demand. So, and there's a lot of events. So an engine event we're counting here is both the traditional overhaul, the performance restoration, but also the LLPs, the life-limited parts that need to be replaced regularly on these engines. So a lot of service events, but lower than what had previously happened. You can see that bar on the left-hand side in 2021. So there's going to be some impacts to engine MROs, how they're going to adjust to that kind of lower capacity. Just last year, we were talking about not having enough capacity, and now we're talking about those MROs not having enough business. This is what I wanted to talk about as far as that green time. Should have made those bars probably green, but these are the engines associated with those retiring aircraft, that 9,400 aircraft that are coming up, and where they fall kind of in that time span. So we see this starting to take place in a big effect in 2023 all through 2026. The big hitters, of course, are the CFM56, the most popular engine probably ever, that are going to be hitting the market there. So hundreds of these engines, either the engines as a whole or engines in pieces, could potentially influence some of the used serviceable material, the USM market. Business. This is business aviation. I mentioned I wanted to talk a little bit about this because this is kind of a bright spot. This is a good news story in the aviation sector. We've put this on a timeline. So business aviation, these are charter operators, fractionals, private entities, corporates flying their aircraft. And they experienced a similar drop-off after the Italian and New York lockdown situation. And we've broken it up by small, medium, and large jets. So you can see those size categories. That's a different color line. Large jets have yet to be recovered. That's the red line that you see on the bottom, and that's the index against the index line. So those are associated with more international travel, where you're dealing with more restrictions on whether you have to self-quarantine and what the rules are going from nation to nation, etc. But the smaller aircraft, we see that activity actually exceeding what it was in the late part of 2019 and 2020. So small jets and medium jets in Europe at least have recovered. Now Europe comprises about 15% of the business aviation market. Compare that to what we see in North America. It's a different story. The small jets, those are the light jets and DLJs and so forth. They've recovered. The medium jets have yet to recover, and the large jets are in a similar situation with not having recovered. So that's kind of the utilization picture. So just for reference, depending on how you slice it, the North America makes up about 60%, almost 2/3, either by fleet, by utilization, or by the aftermarket. So North America is huge when it comes to business aviation. But I wanted to highlight that as a bright spot for the aftermarket business and for business deliveries as a whole. This is what business deliveries I'm showing here. These are the predictions for new aircraft deliveries. This is not sales. These are new aircraft being built and delivered. So they experience, or they're going to experience a similar drop-off. Huge impacts there from some of the OEMs, Textron, et cetera, Gulfstream, all announcing layoffs and cuts in staff. But we think that there's going to be a recovery there, especially with the utilization we're seeing. Unheard of interest in charter activity, people calling up. Wheels Up here in the United States has experienced like a 20% growth just as of the end of August compared to the entire year of 2019. So some interesting activity. About 7,400 of those deliveries are going to be business jets, and about 2,600 are going to be turboprops. And our expectations, if you look at it over the 10 years, are about 8% lower than what we had experienced in the past, or what we had anticipated in the past. And light jets, we see it by unit will be, the vanguard of this. Although the large jets is really where the margin is, similar to in the commercial aviation where you have the twin aisles is really where the higher margins are for the oil. So about $236 billion in delivery value over 10 years. This compares to $2 trillion at retail prices for commercial aviation. And that's been cut by $1 trillion from our previous forecast on the commercial side. So just to give you an idea of the market size. What business aviation aftermarket looks like, kind of a similar story, but actually dropping even more so than commercial aviation. So a lot of expectations across all those different categories by airframe component, engines and modifications are impacted. And just to wrap it up here and give Klaus some time, apologies for going on too long here, but short term, obviously passenger demand is the key for the commercial market. The attitudes of passengers and the public is really what's going to drive the recovery. Although subsidies and effects from the government will be important as well, but it's really going to be the business passenger and the tourism passenger that is going to drive this recovery. As I mentioned, the 737 MAX, the recertification and the market acceptance of that aircraft. Are people going to, want to get on that aircraft? Will they forget that, it's had such a rocky start? So that's yet to be seen, and that's probably one of our, most uncertain aspects in the forecast. Utilization. That people ask, well, what are the best indicators? Is it economics or is it the pandemic? It's really that utilization is the best trailing indicator of what the MRO aftermarket is going to look like. We've got OEMs, MROs, and operators all retrenching, cutting staff, trying to deal with the situation here. And then we have organizations that may join each other, may merge to get themselves through this pandemic. In the medium term, kind of a new normal we see is coming. Social and business culture changes. This is a big question mark in my mind. What are the attitudes of your boss? Are they going to let you travel? Or if you're a boss, are you going to let your people travel? How big of a risk is that? That's really the high profit person in the commercial market. National debt.
Brian?
Yes.
I'm sorry to cut you, but we are so running out of time. We have more 15 minutes. If you can just finish your presentation in 2 minutes, I would appreciate if possible. Sorry, but
Sure.
the time is running.
So, yeah, and my intention was to give some extra slides for your participants here as well. So, and then just a quick one here, and this is my last slide. Impacts for the military defense market here. A lot of conversations about what are the impacts to the defense market. We really don't see it a whole lot in the short term, but with national debts rising due to subsidies for trying to get us all through this pandemic, we see that as impacting to these bullet points here on the slides that you're seeing. So, but within the next 2 years, we're going to see impacts to defense. And thank you for your patience, and I apologize for
Well, thank you very much, Brian. Very interesting presentation, and you pass a message of optimism that we really need in these times. So we see that in 2-3 years we can recover to the 2019 levels, which is great. Klaus, maybe you can jump in and well, I believe you agree with this forecast, or you can share your vision, and also what are the real implications to the industry and aviation in general, in your view?
Yeah, I think it's really hard. When I started to pull this together, and maybe I should start with, when COVID showed up, at least, we started our internal assessment, and we were asked from so many different industry participants what is happening. So we decided quickly that we have to run our own assessment, speaking with the industry, trying to understand the generics and what's happening, and so we developed over the spring and summer, and we are updating this constantly, our assessment on it, and it's very much in line from number-wise with Brian's forecasting. And I remember at the beginning we started with, we will return to normal 2019 standards, we will return in 24 in Europe. And the Americans, they told us this can't be. It has to be much earlier.
Right.
And then it turned. Then the Americans, they came up with 25, and we came to 23. But what does this mean to your question? 2019 levels, it's important that airlines are making money. It's not important that they are returning to the same level of traffic. It's important that they are making money. This is at least what, and they have to reshape. There are roughly 1,500 airlines in the world and 30,000 aircraft. And we will see after the crisis, after COVID is done, we will see maybe 1,000, maybe even less airlines, with maybe only whatever within the next couple of years, only 2,500 to 25,000 aircraft. So the industry will totally change. So, and it's really hard to justify how will the house look like if it's still burning. And unfortunately, the fire brigade is not even invented. The fire brigade or the vaccine, which might help us over that, will be on TRL 5. So it's in the middle of the development, and we don't know at least what's going on. And we all think and hope that in the middle of next year we will have a vaccine, and it's widely distributed, which is bringing us to our back to our normal life. And I hope that this will run. I'm pretty confident. We are checking this constantly, but it's really hard. And my gut feeling tells me, and this is the fourth crisis I survive, and I will survive, I'm sure. But this is the fourth crisis, and this is by far the most serious one we had in our industry. And sorry for being that passionate. I'm thinking I'm a child of this industry, and this is now changing everything. Now we will see the airlines, they need to shift their business model totally. We won't see these daily business trips anymore. Oh, I need to visit our factory an hour away. No, these meetings will be held digital in future. And these are the high margin, this is the high margin business for most airlines. This will be gone for a long time. So we will see a lot of movement, and my biggest issue is that this is also delivering a large chance for everybody. We are receiving so many questions up to now. Can you find us companies? Which companies are under distress? Which are in financial trouble? Which companies maybe fit in my portfolio? Right. Can you find us something? So we will see a lot of consolidation in the next 3-4 years. Yeah. And if we sit together in 5 years, we will see a totally different.
Yeah. Klaus, I'd like to pick in a point that you mentioned that we'll have a window of 2-3 years to recover. But as a matter of fact, some MROs, some airlines will be bankrupt, will close. And so maybe in 2 years' time, when we restart to a certain level of normal operations, shall I say, so maybe the MROs will not have the capacity to respond. And so, because there will be not enough slots for maintenance, so we need to do all the heavy checks to prepare the aircraft to return to operation. Yeah. So what can the MROs and the airlines do together, to avoid, and to have a smooth transition to the normal operation?
I was raised at Lufthansa, and we usually used the phrase, we are in an industry which is the necessary evil. Nobody likes MRO, nobody likes it, but they have to pay it, it's expensive, and usually nobody wants to do maintenance. Nevertheless, it's regulated, it's necessary, and it's mandatory at the end. But the mandatory leads to the demand. So there is a demand. If passengers want to fly, want to travel with an aircraft, the aircraft has to maintain. So we will return to the levels we have seen before. And to your question on the capacity, I have seen in the past years, especially in base maintenance, a lot of new activities, and they are not driven by COVID or whatever, that they are changing D-checks, they are shrinking D-checks. They are sorting out which task has to be done maybe already during operation or in C-checks. So, and this will deliver a lot of flexibility for the MRO players, if they can cope with that, to maybe whatever cover these tsunami. I'm not sure if there will be a tsunami. I'm still not a big fan.
But we'll need also some support from OEMs on that, right?
Of course.
We have to work together on that, right?
Of course.
I have also a question to answer. Well, in these 2-3 years, what you suggest, you are an MRO expert, what you suggest the MRO shall do, to prepare for the future? Because right now they have to survive, right?
I can be heard?
Yes, very good, Hans.
Okay, very good. First of all, thanks for your nice introduction, Jose. I am currently in the military domain, and what I observe in the military domain, we don't have in the aftermarket a crisis. Actually, we get tailwind, as there is also support for military forces to contribute or to sweeten what is the spin-off effect of COVID. What is interesting to observe that commercial MRO is independent world for military MRO, and the commercial MRO is looking to the military market. And I follow Klaus' statement. I see also consolidation, and I see also that, so, let's say, military functions, and that's also important to know that the military, let's say, airworthiness requirements leaning towards more to FAA and EASA. So these two worlds will start to cooperate more and more. And there you will see different setups. Also, I like the statement from Klaus on maintenance equalization. So dividing task over time. So not having big events, but slice it. And with our the motto from this conference on digitalization, when we are getting good in predictive maintenance, we will be also better in equalizing maintenance. And I think also that this tsunami is not coming. I think we will adapt how we perform MRO and service to aftermarket. There is one thing what I think what we are not talking so much about, that is the supply chain. We have that Airbus, we reduced of course the production, and by that also our suppliers need to shrink, and that can make or bring suppliers into trouble. But if you then get a ramp up, you need these suppliers again, and if they do not have the personnel, the qualified and trained personnel, and I think that will be a challenge to maintain a qualified workforce. I think that is a big issue.
Yeah, I fully agree with you, Hans. The training and to keep the people certified in these times will be a real challenge. Andre, with your whole know-how of the Portuguese aviation sector, do you agree with the points presented by Hans, or do you have a different vision for the MROs in Portugal? What shall they do?
Well, thank you very much. And first, I would like to thank you for our invitation, and also the city of Pontessor and his mayor that has been pushing this event for the last 10 years, I guess.
Real.
So it has been very fortunate for the aeronautic sector in Portugal. Well, going back to your question, you know, if I would point out a couple of words to express the current situation, like, you know, overcapacity, you know, like cost pressure, consolidation, you know, we can find a couple of them more than one, innovation. I would say that we have 42 certified MROs in Portugal, but I would say 95% are small, and we have a very small group of medium and 2 large companies. So basically, my thoughts go more for these 2 big companies than from the others, because I think at the end, smaller companies in the MRO are better positioned to face this crisis. So in other words, not only because the big MROs will have to put out some people, and they could bring in better formed and increased capacity to those smaller companies when they need it. Something that, like, sorry, I forgot. Hans mentioned, you know, it's very important that these MROs keep the sufficient and well-trained people so that they can back up the rise of activity that we'll expect in the short future. So I would say that for these companies, you know, now they are managing the crisis, meaning that, you know, they have to look to cost reduction, they have to manage well their finances, they'll have to care for the people for safety, for health reasons. But one thing they have to do is they have to keep proactive with their customers. In other words, they have to work out now and assess what is better for their strategy in the future, so that they can be in a different position with their customers because it is, especially for those that don't have a airway company with them, like TAP, for instance. They could be better positioned, but obviously there's could be better or worse, but obviously they are more protected than the third companies. So I think that, like in OGMA, so I think that, again, especially OGMA, they will have to follow very well their current customers, make sure that they understand what are their needs, make sure that they adapt for their needs in the future, because that will be the key driver. Now, I think that OGMA, especially because of the brand of facilities they have, and they are probably very, I would say, in tune with several activities, not only in aircraft, but in parts, in engines. So that gives them a good exposure and good arguments to sustain the problem and develop in the future a better position. Yeah.
Thank you. We are just finishing the time, and we discussed that we need about 4 hours or more to discuss all these topics. So that would be very difficult to squeeze the presentation. But if just in 1 minute, Brian, I just have one question, because Ansar mentioned that the defense sector was not so affected, at least at the Airbus point of view at the moment. But the countries are right now fighting with the budgets covering, fighting the pandemic. So will we see in the future, in the next 1-2 years, some budget restrictions for defense? If you can just respond in 1 minute, what is your view on that?
Sure. Yeah, that is our perspective on defense budgets. We really don't see too much of a way around it. I think some of the major programs will be, sort of protected, but there's just too much national debt, and there's too many people that need to be taken care of, and the numbers just don't add up. So something has to give, and we think that that's going to be on the defense side.
Okay. Thank you very much, Brian and Hans. I hope that next year you can join us physically here at Ponsor. You are most welcome. And I also like to thank you, Klaus and Andre, for your excellent participation. Thank you very much, and thank you, Ponsor.